When I signed the lease for my apartment, my landlord Frank seemed almost too eager to help, offering to personally handle every little issue instead of using the building's regular maintenance service. He mentioned more than once that he liked to keep a close eye on his property, checking in regularly to make sure everything was working properly. At first, I appreciated having a landlord who seemed so hands-on and responsive whenever something broke. He would show up for repairs even when I hadn't called, saying he noticed something might need fixing from his own inspection rounds. I thought this was just an old-fashioned, attentive landlord who took pride in his building. Other tenants mentioned similar visits, joking that Frank practically lived in the hallways checking on things. I never questioned why he always seemed to know exactly when something in my apartment needed attention, sometimes even before I noticed the problem myself. Looking back now, I realize his constant presence and uncanny timing were never really about good property management. They were something far more calculated, something none of us tenants could have imagined when we first moved in and signed those lease agreements with him. A few weeks after moving in, small things started feeling off. I would come home to find items on my desk slightly rearranged, or a chair pushed in differently than I remembered leaving it. I brushed it off at first, assuming I was simply misremembering small details after a long day at work. Then a coworker asked me about a private conversation I'd had on the phone in my apartment when I was certain no one else could have overheard. When I mentioned this strange feeling of being watched to my neighbor down the hall, she admitted she had felt exactly the same way for months, describing similar small changes in her own apartment that she could never quite explain. Another tenant mentioned that Frank always seemed to know when residents were away on vacation, showing up conveniently to do inspections during those exact windows. We started comparing notes casually at first, treating it almost like building gossip. But the more details we shared, the more unsettling the pattern became. Every strange coincidence seemed to connect back to Frank somehow, and none of us could explain how he always knew so much about our daily lives and schedules without ever directly asking. Everything changed the day my smoke detector started beeping for a low battery, and I climbed up to replace it myself instead of waiting for Frank. Inside, next to the battery compartment, I found a small hidden camera lens pointed directly into my living room. My hands went cold as I stared at it, realizing someone had been watching my apartment this entire time. I immediately texted my neighbor, and together we checked her smoke detector too, finding an identical hidden device inside. We quietly went door to door, and within an hour, we had found similar cameras in at least 4 other apartments in the building, all disguised the exact same way. Digging deeper, one tenant who worked in IT managed to trace the wireless signal from the cameras back to a router located in Frank's own apartment on the ground floor. We realized he had likely been recording tenants for months, possibly longer, using his master key, access, and constant excuse of maintenance checks to install and maintain the devices without anyone noticing, sitting together in my living room, all of us in shock. We knew we could not simply confront him alone, because he would deny everything, and quietly remove the evidence before anyone could prove what he had actually done. Instead of confronting Frank directly, we contacted the police together as a group, presenting the cameras we had found, along with photos and the traced router information. An officer explained that in order to build a strong case, they needed to catch Frank in the act of accessing or maintaining the illegal cameras himself. We agreed to install a small hidden camera of our own, aimed at the hallway outside my apartment, and then deliberately mentioned to Frank that several of us would be away for a weekend trip. That Saturday night, our camera captured Frank using his master key to enter my apartment alone, checking the hidden device in the smoke detector, and reviewing footage on a small tablet while talking quietly to himself. The recording showed him adjusting the camera angle and confirming the wireless connection was still working properly. We immediately sent this footage to the police, who arrived within the hour and caught Frank still inside my apartment with the tablet and recording equipment in hand. He tried to claim he was simply checking a wiring issue, but the time-stamped footage, his own recorded voice, and the tablet full of stored recordings made any explanation completely impossible for him to maintain. Frank was arrested on the spot, facing multiple charges of illegal surveillance and invasion of privacy against numerous tenants throughout the building. Investigators later confirmed he had been recording residents for nearly 2 years, storing hours of footage from multiple apartments on hard drives found in his unit. Several tenants, myself included, were released from our leases immediately and received compensation from the building's insurance policy for the violation of our privacy Many of us moved to a new building together shortly after, choosing a management company with proper maintenance, staff instead of a single landlord holding master keys to every unit. My neighbor, who first admitted feeling watched, became a close friend through the entire ordeal, and we still laugh about how casual building gossip turned into evidence that helped put someone away. Looking back, checking that smoke detector battery myself instead of waiting for Frank to do it was the small decision that ended up exposing everything. If you ever get a strange feeling that something in your home isn't quite right, trust that instinct and take a closer look yourself. If you want more real stories like this one, with twists you will not see coming, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next one.